Are you able to hear me right now? For fuck's sake. You guys can't hear me? Can you hear me? Oh my god, you hear me. Alright, great. Welcome. Okay. Um, so this is not really working for me right now. Otherwise I would show you guys how I'm charting. It's just, as you can see, loading as that sometimes happens. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to show you guys how to how I like to screen. So other than when I'm screening on Thinkorswim, I'm using FinViz, which I'm sure a lot of you are super familiar with. Um, if you're not, it's definitely something you'll want to get familiar with. I just want to see if you guys can still hear and see me. Oh, I'm sorry. You heard it. Okay. A lot of the time, what I'll do is start with a really narrow search. Um, and I'll have like a notebook with me, and I just write down like key information from these things I find in the narrow search, and then I broaden out from there, find anything else that kind of stands out from there because I don't want to miss things. So let's start narrow, and we'll just see what's double its average volume. Pretty much, that's what that means. So just changing a few settings here already brings us down to under 300. And then I'll go over to the technical. And so what I look for sometimes when I'm starting narrow is I'll start with oversold. See what that gives me. That's pretty narrow, so I'm gonna broaden it out and just do not overbought, so under 50 RSI, and I'm sure a lot of you know RSI is, but it's just kind of a measure of how how much of if it's overbought or oversold. So it's on a scale of 0 to 90, I think, and under 40 would be oversold and 70 overbought. So then sometimes I'll throw this one in here, which is what I just put in there was 40% or more below its 52-week high. And oh, okay, there's a float option actually. So I'll just look for under 20 mil float. And then I'll organize it by price. And what I like to do, because I'm basing a lot of what interests me off of the charts, so I like to see them as I go through my screened stocks. So I'm just going through and looking for things that interest me, and that's usually something with like a lot of upside kind of off the bat. There's nothing really. So I'm gonna change up a few things. So Armed, pops up. Has a ton of volume. Pretty low float, but what I like to do is I like to double check on Yahoo Finance because a lot of the time FinViz isn't super accurate. So I'm getting a under 10 mil float there on Yahoo, and here it's saying 25 mil. So either way, it's a relatively small float. So what that means generally is, if there's a lot of volume, the price moves really quickly in either direction. So see if this is working. Okay. Forget charting, I guess. So this one's definitely something that would interest me, but I know that it's a Chinese company, and I'm avoiding that based on, some bill being passed where they're going to delist a lot of Chinese companies, and it's just too much risk for me to take on. Doesn't sit with me. So this is a small float, lots of volume. Wow, a lot of volume. So I always want to know what's going on for any stock that I'm going to be buying, especially if I'm going to be holding it for a period of time. So this looks like it had an offering for $1.50 a share, and warrants as well for $1.88. And so that just closed. And some things I would write down here is, it's float. So we'll double check that on Yahoo. Really sorry I can't chart for you guys. I'm going to try this one more time. But it's not looking like it's going to work. So anyways, I'll just keep screening. So on Yahoo, I'm getting 6.5 million float. So I'm going to trust Yahoo over FinViz. And then another thing I would note is that the offering closed for, $1.50. There's also warrants for $1.88. Typically those expire a lot. Those are open for a lot longer, those warrants. 5 years, yeah. So that's not really that's could still run over $1.88. Based on this chart here, I guess I can use these lines. Yeah, there's definitely like a support level right here, you know. And then I would definitely say the resistance is around $1.80, just right there. And then you have even more upside if it were to break those resistance points and then hold over them. When I'm holding a stock, I'm always watching the price action, like between the lines that I draw out, which I can't show you right now. But if it can hold over the resistance that it breaks through, then I will hold the stock, and I'll have my time in sales up through the day, and I'm watching the actual quantity of the buys and like if they're at the bid or if they're at the ask. Volume per minute. And you have to consider when it's low float, it can also break support really easily. So another way I like to screen, and I'll show you guys this while I have you, is I like to screen for things that are under their average volume, because when they're under their average volume, you can easily find like a nice break in support, and then if you wait on a couple other indicators like volume coming in again, for example, then you can find a really nice entry point before anyone else and snag some extra profit. So I want it to definitely be over like 100K. If I'm looking for under average, if I'm looking for under average volume, I want that average to be over 100K at the very least. Keeps that float. So yeah, TBLT, for example, something that I'm watching, because it had an offering and it is a small float. If I think so, if I check. I always like to double check on Yahoo. So yeah, on Yahoo I'm getting 15 mil. So that's what I'm gonna use. But you can see here that it dropped down on an offering, and that offering price was for $1. You could probably find the news here. Yeah, so the offering closed and it ran up a little bit, but it's fallen back down to its low support in the offering price when the offering was open. So it's under the offering price. It's a small float. It's under its average volume. So what you want to watch for is you want to keep an eye on the average being 3.8 mil, and you want to see if it actually builds up to that at this price level. It's kind of how I do it, and then if it keeps building, then I will look to take a position at support. And I just want to check in. Alright, so this is pretty interesting because it ran up after. I was watching this a long time ago. I had a position. Hadn't earnings. Anyways. So it has really strong support here around $4 and it ran about to $6. Maybe that's like 580. Can't really tell on this chart. It's tried to hold support and now it's breaking, so it's under the average volume and it's a small float. So what you're going to want to see is volume for sure, otherwise it will just, drop and keep dropping to its next support level. And if it does and you're watching it, then you might be able to get in before people notice. And so this is why I'm looking for stocks that are under their average volume, because I'm trying to snag a nice entry. So this week there was a huge, sell-off in everything, pretty much. So there's actually just a lot of good entry points, kind of all around. So it looks like they might have had a positive earnings report, which I can look into. Obviously like an RS something. But yeah, huge sell-off with oil. Looks like it has quite a bit of upside, so I think this is actually a much higher number, if I'm correct, but it's just representing a weird conversion of the RS, the reverse split. Okay, well, it looks like the internet's just having a really hard time, so I'll try. Do you guys want me to keep doing this, or would you rather me try this another time? If it's just really difficult for you guys to watch, don't want to. Alright, well, I'm going to open up these settings a bit because 23 stocks is not many to look through. Wow. Okay, so this article here about hedge funds fighting on this company, I'm just gonna quickly go to Fintel if you guys aren't familiar with it, and then a few things I'd write down here is that it's 60% of its average volume is basically what that's saying right there. Relative volume, that's about 60% of what it usually is. And then I would write down, I would check on Yahoo, but I don't really want to right now with this one. But just write down that it's kind of a low float, or just write down its float size, which is 30 million. So quickly I'm going to go check and see recent institutional buys on this. And to do that, I go to this website. You know, I'm sure a lot of you use it, called Fintel. Oh, okay. Savvy. So, yeah, right away I'm just not even gonna look at that because savvy stocks are just pretty manipulated, and that's just not what I like to be swinging. I'm looking for things basically that are, you know, approaching support, or they're at support and showing signs of reversal. And if they are already reversing, what I will plan to do is I'll, you know, enter at their previous resistance level or at support basically. Um, and I'll enter incrementally. And this is so important because if you just throw your entire, you know, if you want to put in $1,000 and you put in $1,000 right away, you're just risking it all. And if it drops, then you're going to be down. Whereas if you start with, you know, 300 and it drops 10% and then it stays there and it gives you the indication it's going to maybe reverse, then you can put down your other 600 and you average down really easily, right? So that's just one way you can be minimizing your risk. Okay. So this is interesting because yeah, I always watch this one. I've played it, but it's a small float stock. This time I will check for you guys' sake. So when I'm screening, I'm always writing down. Ooh, that's not right. It might work. I'm always writing down key factors for me, which is going to be its float and its relative volume. Any news around it, like offerings. I know that this company had an offering recently of $1, I think, or $1.10. Okay, and then I'm gonna know what the company does. So may as well. So it's online tech company, and they make a software that, you know, fits people to clothing. So that's great for retailers right now. Um, and then yeah, so I would draw my support here probably at like 95 cents. I feel like that's where this is right here. I don't really know. But it looks like it dropped earlier this week and it reversed quite nicely. Um, and then I wanted to look here, yeah, so I saw the float was 6.4 mil on Yahoo, and here it's saying 1.5. So seems like shares outstanding is sometimes the float on Finviz. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to take Yahoo's word for it and write down 6.4 million float. it has 68% of its average volume, so you might see a nice dip like you see here. And I can bet you this probably happened, in the pre-market when there was like nobody on the stock. And what happens there is people just sell it. And since there's no volume and it's a low float, when people sell it, anyone holding that, it just drops because there's not enough people buying it, too many people selling it, obviously. So yeah, you'll just want to be charting out your support levels, and then you'll be watching this. You know what the volume is, so you know it's under average volume because you have that written down, right? And then you can see it break support really quickly, and you place a low bid and you get filled, and then once the volume picks up again, it'll reverse nicely. And this is just kind of a strategy I use. So this is me just screening for stocks that are under their average volume. So I'm going to be watching my size. I wrote this down personally. So these are kind of the settings for something like this. I'm getting like 80 stocks here, so you can fiddle with these, but I'm using the RSI, either not overbought or oversold. I'm never looking for overbought stocks unless I'm buying puts or something. And then sometimes I use this one, which is the 52-week high-low, and this one is right here. I kind of play with 50 to 30, just so there's immediate upside in whatever I'm looking at, pretty much. So when I'm looking for stocks with under average volume, I'm gonna have their average volume pretty high because I don't really want to look for something that has low volume most of the time, and it's low on that at the moment because it's just too dead for me. And then right here I have float, but I don't actually usually use float. Something that you can use, definitely a really good tool. Cut that list down by half, so I'll probably start using that. I didn't know that it was on Finviz, I couldn't find it. So I would just recommend opening up a few of these because this all settings is overwhelming, and they're in descriptive and technical for the most part. And then I don't, and then yeah, so the float is in descriptive right here. So yeah, play with that too. And yeah, I hope that was kind of interesting for you guys. Okay, so when I'm searching for DD, what I'm usually